Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Golden Frequency Radio. Today is Wednesday, September 28th, 2016. I am Beth Carr, Intuitive Quantum Energy Healer, and your host here with my friend and co-host Eric Rains. Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Eric is the alchemical engineer behind UnleashingNaturalHumanity.com and the etheric parasite and implant removal protocol that we both utilize in sessions with our clients. More information about this work can be found at UnleashingNaturalHumanity.com, as well as the Facebook page, Unleashing Natural Humanity. We also have a YouTube channel, Golden Frequency Radio, where you can listen to recordings of our previous shows. We will be taking questions for the duration of the show tonight. For those of you that would like to join the discussion, please call 619-924-9805 and just press 1 to let me know that you'd like to speak on air with us. Or you can also post your questions in the chat tonight in all capital letters, where our lovely moderator, Sierra Lovelace, will forward them to us. I would like to extend a great big thank you to our audience, those listening live tonight, and those listening later to the archived recording. Let us all take a moment together now to set our intention for tonight's show as being in alignment with the highest good for all, providing space for resonant information, validation, and support for anyone who has found their way to this broadcast. Tonight's show is a Q&A show. We recently asked for questions from the members of our Facebook groups, Remember and Evolve and Unleashing Natural Humanity. So let's begin, Eric, with one of those questions. And this one I think specifically is for you. Eric, how do the different races, alien and multidimensional, tie into this parasite removal work?
Okay, so there's actually quite a bit to expound on here. So the negative entities, the negative races that are actually propagating the system, there's multi-tiers that go to this. You have actual physical beings, such as the Greys, the Zetas, there's Mantids, things like that. But a lot of these races are actually astral in nature as well. And then you have some with a dualistic nature that are both in the astral and physical at the same time. We've got things like reptilians, mantids. The reptilians have multiple castes, such as they're all part of the same species, but they have different genetic traits from different planets that they evolved on as they all came together, and so they kind of put their DNA all in one melting pot. But the highest level caste of those guys are like 14-foot tall white Dracos that they call them the white royal Dracos, and these guys are physical as well as astral, and I've actually been attacked by a few of these before, and they've got a very, very strong astral presence. There's no question that they're there when they show up. There's no question whatsoever. And so there's all these negative aspects of the species that are a part of this, and they're the ones actually propagating these systems here on the planet that the implant and the parasites and the actual entity attachments and possessions that we run into. And they are doing this specifically because they need the energy from humanity. They need the negative vibrational emotional energy, such as fear, hate, anger, shame, guilt, anything along those lines, anything that's overbalanced beyond the natural spectrum. It literally feeds these guys. And they also can use worship energy as well. And what's going on with these guys is they are completely and totally cut off from the positive aspect of Source, which is a natural system of creation, to be connected into the God consciousness, be connected into the Creator. And so, like, when I say this, our soul, everybody has a soul, you know. It's the vital life force essence that's powering the body, that's pretty much the consciousness piloting the meat suit around. And it doesn't need energy. It's eternal. It doesn't, you know, ever wane or just snuff out. It's completely and totally there all the time and self-sustaining because it is connected directly into source. These guys don't have that, and so they literally need a source of sustenance in order to eat, to survive. And so that's one of the reasons why the system was propagated here to begin with. But then on the other hand, and like one thing I do kind of want to point out is that the negative species are way, way, way less common than the benevolent and positive and kind species. It's just that they do things that anything that's service to others wouldn't do. And so they are much more of a problem, and so you end up with these benevolent races who are easily like 90% of the species of extraterrestrials and astral beings and multidimensional beings that are here on the planet right now. And all they can really do is just help us from the inside. You know, that's why we're coming here into this system, is because the system is a closed loop. It's a reincarnation trap that, even though we were tricked, we're still agreeing to it, and we're propagating it. And since it's being propagated by us in our collective consciousness, the only thing that they can do is either send in operatives, which are people like us who came from the other side, who woke up here and started remembering our mission to turn the light on the inside and break it from the inside. And then there's the other ones who are actively talking directly to those people. The inspirations, the connectivity that people are getting with their star family, with their soul family. It's one of the reasons why we are able to do the light work that we're doing the fighting with the light. It's not it's not like all love and light out there. This is literally a war for the survival of humanity, and they're fighting for their survival as well, and that's why it is the way it is. But we've got multiple positive beings here. We've got physical, and we have astral, and we have multidimensional. All the way up to, if you look into Corey Good, he's talking about these blue spheres. One of them is actually surrounding the entire solar system, and the negative aspect of the Secret Space Alliance calls it the outer barrier. Nothing can get in or out right now, either good or negative in nature. And so you have lots of different layers that are not, I wouldn't say compartmentalized, but they all have their own agenda. They're all service to others, but they all have their own agenda. And a lot of them are trying to completely and totally free us from these systems right here. But like I said, it's a closed loop. It's a reincarnation trap. And so the only way that you can help is by actively connecting in with the people who are inside of that trap and then waking them up so that they can start breaking the systems so that they can reach down. I mean, they are reaching down. They're trying to grab a hold of us, but we have to be able to jump up high enough in order to grab a hold of them, and that's where the work comes in. That's why we all have to really start clearing ourselves, becoming a better person than we were the day before, constantly work on being more service to others and figuring out what we're here for, the compassion, the love, the experience of just being here in the now, in this reality that we can all co-create together, and literally taking back the collective consciousness and steering it towards the direction that we want. And we've got, what do we have on the positive side? We've got the Nordics, I suppose, are supposed to be very positive. I honestly don't know. And like I say a lot, I don't like to put labels on things. I only describe what I see and what I feel. And so I've never actually had a face-to-face with any type of a positive entity. So, I can't say yay or nay with, or not positive entity, but a positive physical being in extraterrestrial nature. I've had many actual interactions with many positive multidimensional entities, but never anything physical. So, I really can't say here or there with them, but what I have heard is that there's a lot of the Nordics. We have there's a confederation that it's multiple different alliances. The Arcturians, the Lyrans, I guess they're cat-like beings who are purplish in appearance. We've got the Blue Avians, all the Sphere Being Alliance, the massive spheres that are here in our solar system right now. Apparently there's 4 different species. There's only 2 that have come out and contacted humanity. One's the Blue Avians, one's the Gold Triangle head beings, which are, I guess, like 12-foot tall, really lanky beings that have triangular-shaped heads. And, we have all these different types of species that are here right now. And it's all because of us. It's because not only are we trapped here in this system, which not only is atrocity and needs to stop, but we are literally an evolutionary crux point. There is so much mixing of the DNA from around the galaxy and the universe that is here on planet Earth inside of humanity that the potential in each and every one of us is absolutely phenomenal. It's amazing what our potential is. Like if you even with mainstream science, you can look at the what they call the junk DNA. We've only got like 98% of our DNA that isn't active, that isn't working, and it's the 2% that dictates what you look like, what your personality is like. And so we literally have 98% of our aspect that isn't turned on right now. And this is one of the reasons why we are trapped to begin with, because there is so much potential inside the human race to do amazing things. And so what they've done is shut us down and are using our connect to source to pretty much feed. And so you've got multiple angles on why, and the who, the where, the why, the how, and the what for going on right now. But that's pretty much a long and a short of it. So if there's anything more specific, just go ahead and point me in that direction, and I'll start running that way.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to recognize that as we can integrate and assimilate deeper and higher levels of information, then that information does become available to us. Because really, if we had all of the information that we think we need or want at this time, it's very likely that we would turn into piles of goo on the floor. And so it comes in as we're able to integrate it. And it's definitely my feeling, my intuitive feeling, because like you, I rely primarily on the information that comes from within more than anything. And it's my feeling that there are many, many, many more living beings than we can even really imagine at this point. And when we're ready to have access to that understanding and are ready to come face to face with them, I think that sort of thing will happen. Just sort of as it's meant to. So this sort of segues us into not a totally dissimilar question, which I am actually having trouble finding the exact question, but it's around the idea of false light beings. So, we do have, we have parasites that function primarily through generating low-level emotions and thought forms. And then there are also parasites who are, perfectly happy enough to sort of come from another angle. So maybe we can talk just a little bit about that.
So a false light being is a negatively oriented service to self being that is cloaking itself as a service to others, benevolent, kind entity. And so you'll end up running into these a lot with a lot of channelers connect into these types of entities. And so what will end up happening is there's quite a few different things that are hallmarks of this. First off, it'll be regurgitated information. It'll be, the regular love and light, new cage type thought process. Like you have to keep nothing but love and light in your mind at all times. Otherwise, the negative aspect's going to be able to take you over. Things like that. and you'll notice in the beginning it'll be maybe 3 or 4 months of contact that'll be the same type of information coming through, and then it'll start to shift itself. And what you'll notice is it will open up doors for manipulation. It'll open up doors for, I guess you could say, distorting the energy of the person that the entity is talking through. And so it'll start off with somebody who is all gung-ho about connecting in with their soul family, with their light family, with positive entities that are here to help. And they very well might actually tap into one of those types of frequencies. But what will happen most often than not is that there will be a negative entity that sees this connection and will actually hijack it and take it over and pretend to be that being to begin with. And so you might even get some really good information in the beginning, and then you'll notice that it'll start to maybe contradict itself a little bit. It'll start to show its ego. It'll start to turn out the ego of the person that they're channeling through. It'll start, you are the chosen one. You're here for a very specific reason, and it was you. You're the one who's going to save everything. Messiah complex type manipulation. And so what will happen is with type of ego stroking, especially from a multidimensional being that you truly believe is completely and totally benevolent, you start to believe it. And it opens up a huge ego wall that, and then you start treating people differently because of it. It's like, well, I am the chosen one. How dare you think differently than I am telling you? I'm getting this straight from the source, and you run into this quite a bit. And so what will end up happening is then you'll start seeing problems with money. People will start asking for donations. They'll start, like, well, we're doing multidimensional work here, and we have to have a big giant space so we can get all our light workers together. And so, you'll have this massive rush for it all to happen, and it'll just kind of fall apart. And then people will say something about, well, where's my money at? And lo and behold, it's gone, and you're not getting it back. You'll start seeing stuff like that. What else do we have here? You'll start seeing a following, almost like a cult following. So instead of lifting people up with information to teach them to become their own guru, to teach them to figure out their own source of truth, to figure out the resonance of truth and falsehood, it'll almost have a set doctrine, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do in this situation, this is the way that you have to think, this is the way you have to feel, these are the energetic practices you have to do, and things along those lines. And so, and then when you actually meet these people, you might not ever notice anything from the information that's coming out, but then you actually meet these people, and there's a predatory nature to them. A lot of them turn into sexual predators. A lot of them turn into ego predators that they need the gratification of other people looking up to them. And it's not them that's actually doing this. This is the entity behind them that started off in the beginning as a beautiful source of information that slowly started perverting their energy, and it's almost like boiling a frog to death. You put them in a Bunsen burner and set the petri, or you put them in a petri dish and set the Bunsen burner on really low that raises only a degree every minute. The frog will never even notice that the water gets up to boiling temperature until it's too late, and that's kind of what goes on right here. Now, when I deal with false light beings on the energetic aspect, I see all the time is an incredibly bright white light. It's always white. They can't mimic gold. They can't pretend to be gold in nature. I have ran into entities trying to mimic gold light, but it's like a hollow yellow white, and it's you can definitely tell the difference. And so anytime I ever have an entity that shows up and it tries to, come across as a benevolent being, and it can't show me gold light, I just, tune it out immediately. Others that have tried to keep on persisting, I've taken gold light and I've wrapped them up, and you can't wrap up a being of light with light. It's like trying to use a bowl of water to hold water. It just kind of slips right through, and it integrates into the energy itself. And so that's kind of what I see with a false light being. And these are negatively oriented multidimensional entities. These are as far as I know, the negativity can't make it into sixth dimensions or into the sixth dimension, but I do know that there are fifth dimensional false light beings out there. So it's, this is why discernment is so important. This is why figuring out who you are and recognizing what the core view is inside and figuring out from there, moving into that space and literally sitting inside yourself and asking yourself, well, how do I feel about this? And waiting for the response from your body or the response from spirit, because truth has a very, very distinctive resonance. It's completely and totally opposite from falsehood. Truth is a very solid feeling energy. It is, there's a ring to it. There's a resonance. There's a knowing. There's an understanding that this is truth. And falsehood is very hollow, very empty. It's almost like a house made out of balsa wood. There's no solidity to it. You can pick it up and move it around, even though it looks giant and massive. So that's kind of where we need to all look inside and try to start figuring out, because you don't want to run into something like this and then just kind of get let off by the nose. And so even when I deal with entities that I have dealt with many, many times before, I always vet them through no matter what, because we are in the age of complete and total disinformation and misinformation energetically here on this planet, And so you have to be very careful when you're dealing with entities on the outside. So honestly, I try not to deal with entities even if I know they're benevolent or not. I try to do everything on my own. I try to figure everything out on my own. And it's only when I get stuck into a bind and I need help, that's when I ask for it. And so even then I have to vet everything out. It's a very problematic situation. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but, it teaches amazing discernment. And, that's kind of the crux of that one right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really in-depth answer. And I think it's important for us to recognize, too, that especially right now, as you've said, disinformation and misinformation is kind of the sea we're swimming in. And sometimes you'll get a little mixture of both. And so developing that level of discernment and really paying attention to where the resonation is, which is really our intuitive guidance, it is possible to navigate through the disinformation and misinformation and sort of, division tactics. And sometimes there are little gems of truth in strange places. And when your discernment is really tuned in, you can really find those. It looks like we might be having some technical difficulties with our chat this evening, unfortunately. So for those of you that are interested in entering the chat and posting questions there, we're having some technical problems. So please do feel free to call in with your questions. And the number again is 619-924-9805, and be sure to press 1 if you'd like to ask a question or join us on air. Otherwise, I'll just think you're just calling in to listen. Okay, so let's move on. This next question is a good segue from where we've been going in the discussion, and this one is from Nicole. How about practical ways to stay parasite-free, like nightly routines or daily spiritual hygiene? I ask because I can tune into this stuff and work on it, but I just don't remember to. But I never forget to brush my teeth or wear shoes. Exclamation point. It's really a great question. Yeah.
Well, that's actually kind of funny because one of the things that when I'm doing coaching sessions and I'm teaching people how to move the energy around inside their body and increase their ability to do this, I say, I don't walk outside the house without pants. I don't walk outside the house without my shield up. It's very, very vital. It's something that needs to be done. And I guess the best way to do something like that would be put a reminder next to your mirror or something like that, so that when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, it's something that you see, shielding, or something along those lines. daily routines that can be done. I've actually got one on my YouTube channel on Eric Pilgrim. It's called the Implant Removal and Extraction Protocol Prep. And it's the prep work. It's the actual video. And what I do is I go over EFT tapping. I go over how to consciously breathe into your body. I do self-lymphatic drainage, where you actually follow the lymphatic pathways in your body and physically manipulate them to start opening them up and getting things to flow more. And then I do Qigong. Now, Qigong, actually, I think I'm going to have to be doing a few more videos for different moves for this and post those up, because the Qigong for me is absolutely invaluable, and it's a series of movements that you are integrating the breath and energy flow through the body at the same time you're doing a movement. And there's actually a few of them that are incredibly valuable. And so say, for instance, that you have a physical issue that is going on. Well, one of the best ones that I can actually talk about was something that I physically did for myself. So when I started figuring out these systems, like the Dantian systems and the Qigong, I was figuring out how to use the lower Dantian to rotate it to hit harder and to take harder hits in martial arts. And like when you get really good at this, you can hit so hard that you can easily do 10 times the amount of impact that your body should be able to do, as well as take hits that would kill you if you weren't using this type of energy here. And I was exploring this, and I didn't have a heavy bag or anything like that to use. And so I signed up for like a trial run at the local Krav Maga place, which is an Israeli Special Forces self-defense style, and it's really a brutal style, honestly. It's the maximum amount of damage in the least amount of time and motion possible, and it's really something like I'd never come across before. I did kung fu and I did jiu-jitsu, and I've done pretty much mixed martial arts and stuff like that. But what I came across here with this style, it was just absolutely effective, and it was something that I'd never actually experienced on that level before. But what they do is they do a lot of things that you wouldn't consider fair in a fight. They do a lot of groin kicks. They do a lot of eye pokes and stuff like that. And what I was doing with the groin kicks is I had this guy that I paired up with who was holding the pad for me. And I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'6" and about 150, 155 pounds. And he was easily 300 pounds and about 6'4". And he was holding this pad, and I was kicking so hard and using the Dantian to make the kick and the impact a lot stronger. And it was literally lifting this guy up off of his feet every single time that I would kick. And, it was just really interesting, because I told them in the beginning that I was trying to figure out how to integrate the energy into the striking. And they kind of just laughed at me, well, we don't do anything like that. I'll teach you how to kick a guy in the nuts really hard, though. And they were completely and totally just dismissive of it. But then they actually saw me doing this, and they pulled me aside afterwards and were talking to me about it, and I was explaining what was going on. But what happened when I was doing this is I didn't use the energy to protect my foot, and I blew apart every single vein, every single artery inside my foot. And when I was done with that class, I had this massive purple, reddish-blue bruise that was creeping up into my ankle. And it was ugly. It was really ugly. And the Qigong book that I'd been reading that was helping me to figure all this out, it mentioned something about how you can actually direct the Qi through your body to heal things directly instead of, just moving it through in a general way. And so when I went home that night and I laid in bed, I was doing the conscious breathing, which is taking a deep breath of Qi instead of, recognizing that you're breathing in Qi. You're breathing in oxygen, that what you're doing is converting it from the molecular structure into its base form, which is energy, and then you're flowing that directly to your body wherever you want. And so one of the places I show people where to breathe into is the lower Dantian right below the belly button. But you don't have to breathe in there. You can breathe anywhere you want. You can breathe into your eyeball. You can breathe into your hair. You can breathe into your foot. And that's what I was doing, is I was breathing down the back of my leg into the foot, massaging everything through energetically. And then as I was exhaling, I was taking the injury and converting it into carbon dioxide and breathing it out of my body. I focused on doing this for 20 minutes. And when I woke up the next day, I had a little bit of discoloring in between my toes, and that was it. And it was completely and totally healed. Now, this bruise right here was something that it was going to swell up. It was going to be incredibly painful. It was going to be a huge issue to get my foot on, my shoe on into my, and, you know, even a sock, actually. And by doing this, I completely and totally healed it overnight. And this is just one of the simple aspects of something of what you can do once you start figuring out how to move this energy through your meridian systems and start recognizing where the actual energy centers in the body are. And so by doing this conscious breathing, by doing this these healing techniques, these healing understandings is more like it, because it's more along the lines of recognizing that I am an infinite healer machine that is constantly healing myself. I am constantly dividing new cells from the old ones, and the old ones are dying, and I am constantly being remade anew. And so why don't I make myself whole? Why don't I make myself, free of discomfort, free of pain, free of disease, free of dysfunction, by just, focusing on it? And that it's kind of stepping into the role of recognizing that you are an energetic being, not just a physical one. And so that's part of the aspect of doing this right here. And so the Qigong taught me all of that. And so these movements that you do, any type of physical ailment that you have, when you focus on the flowing the energy through with these deep abdominal breaths this way, you can literally reverse cancer. You can take damaged organs and you can repair them. You can heal broken bones like 10 times faster. And it's a very powerful way to move the energy through your body. And that right there allows you to then do the shielding protocols, the gold light meditations, turning on the gold light much, much stronger. And just by gaining the awareness inside your body and doing that, you can really tap into these aspects that make you an energetic powerhouse. And so it's something that you have to do every day, though. It's not something that you can just do once or twice and feel the benefit from it and say, oh, that's good, I don't need it anymore. It's something that it's like brushing your teeth. This is your energetic hygiene right here. You don't go 2 months without taking a shower. You don't go 2 months without cleaning out your energetic field, And I don't take a shower every day, but I manage to take one at least once every 2 or 3 days, But this is more important than keeping the physical body clean. This is keeping the energetic body clean. And if you don't do this, you literally start to shut down. And I actually felt this as I stopped doing it. And I was recognizing that the work that I was doing wasn't as easy. I had to focus and strain a lot harder to remove the parasites from my clients when I was doing sessions. And I was actually starting to physically go downhill because of it. And so I restarted my practice of doing the Qigong, and it's opening everything back up. And it's almost like riding a bike. You get right back onto it, and within 2 or 3 days, you're already feeling the energy flowing through your body much stronger. And so it's just a series of making a commitment to yourself to be strong in this aspect, because, you are sitting there doing these movements, and there's 10 of them specifically that I do, and I do 5 to 10 of them each time that I go through the set. And it does take a while sometimes, like especially if I feel dysfunction or a blockage that I'm trying to push through, it can take up to a half hour doing it, But, I mean, how much time do we waste throughout the day not doing anything productive? How much time goes by the wayside when we're, sitting there watching TV or, doodling around on Facebook? This is just a half hour that goes into making yourself a much, much stronger person to be able to fight off the parasite influence, to keep yourself clear of all the nastiness that's going on just by being here incarnated on this planet right now. And so it's an agreement to make yourself healthy, and just like when we do yoga or when we work out or stuff like that, it's not something that you can just do every once in a while and see the benefits from it. I mean, you'll feel better, and you'll definitely notice that you don't feel as down or out because of it. But when we commit to doing this every day, it really steps into the power of it, where we start to recognize these systems on a much, much deeper, much more integrative level, where we can walk around and see things in everybody that around us, and we can actually start interacting with them and we can start people on an awakening journey simply because we can, dial right directly into their issue that they have going on, that the parasite is expounding and making worse, and we can, just offhandedly mention something about it, and it starts, a questioning, a curiosity, like, wait, how the heck does this person even know something like this? And you can easily step into, a conversation that starts waking people up from stuff like that. We have to really move into the light and start spreading it around, and we can't do that just by being on our own without spreading it. It's part of that whole reason why we're here. It's part of the way that we are going to unleash natural humanity and take out this false parasitic construct that is directing human nature into what we call human nature. And Qigong is very, very powerful. I'm definitely going to have to be filming some videos on that, little quick 3-4 minute videos on the how-to, what you do with the breath, how you flow the energy through, what you're focusing on in the movement itself, and then just run through that and have a little playlist so that people can just kind of tune into that. And then especially with like, say you've got a nasty attachment in your head that you can feel, but you can't seem to push it through. There's specific movements that you can do with the Qigong that would be powerful specifically for that area right there. Something that's in your abdomen, there's a different move for that. And so, you can kind of symptom diagnose and then take it from there and just kind of do your own thing. And that's definitely going to have to happen here in the near future. But it's, like I was saying, it's brushing your teeth. It's going outside with clothes on, it's something that has to be done, especially once you become aware of it.
Well, the thing that's making me laugh is that anyone who's ever had to try to get a small child to brush their teeth and get their shoes on to get out the door knows, and some of us even remember, when we were kids, getting your teeth brushed was a big deal. It was like you didn't want to do it, first of all, and it was a big deal. And as adults, it's like a spa for your mouth. We like it. We like to brush our teeth. And I think that this kind of work, it's not dissimilar from that. You sort of push through that beginning resistance, and you draw from your personal discipline to create a habit where not only are you doing shielding work and energy movement, but it's really, at some point, it becomes a constant. The idea of being shielded and employing that internal observer who is constantly monitoring without judgment your thoughts, feelings, and triggers. Using it's really a number of things. It's not just one thing or another. We sort of have to recognize that it's every now moment that we're in, that we are vigilant, and that we are aligning with the highest frequency of energy that we can anchor in. And that internal observer is incredibly powerful because we are targeted where we still have work, where there's still work to be done. If there's an unhealed trauma and someone is stuck in the eddy of that trauma, sort of just circulating around within it, that's a back door that's potentially left open for being targeted. And in a way, we can look at where we're targeted as kind of a roadmap, which from a certain perspective can be seen as useful. But if we ignore the signs of where we're triggered or where our thought process is leading us or getting, really sucked into a negative emotional state, if we ignore those signs, then we don't ever really get that back door closed. So it's kind of a balance between doing the energy movement and also really attending to ourselves holistically, attending to the holistic health as well. So I guess there's no magic pill answer for that question. It's really that we just have to decide that just like oral hygiene, our energetic and spiritual and emotional and all of the other components of who we are holistically, it's just as important, really, if not more so. Here's a good question that segues us really well from the talk about Dantians. So Allison says, regarding chakra integration, the 3 Dantian made a lot of sense to me, but I keep going back to the 0 point of the body concept of one main power source, and taking it down to 1. What are your thoughts or knowledge on the 3 Dantian versus 0 point? Do the 2 concepts somehow tie in together, or is there further integration from 3 down to 1? That's a great question.
Yeah, definitely. In the beginning, when I first integrated my chakras, all I thought I had was a massive star inside of my chest. And it was only after the energy started to integrate and I wasn't feeling like this massive heat and flying out energy coming through my chest that I was able to recognize that it wasn't just the one in my chest that I had, but it was one in my head and one in my lower abdomen. That's the 3-part Dantian system right there. But what I noticed is that the heart is the command center. That's where all the information is relayed through and from. And so, so the way that I liken this to the old 7-layer chakra system, the 7-colored chakra system, is that the 7-layer chakra system, like you would have something that was going on with what was coinciding with the root energy, the primal nature, that kind of a thing. And if you wanted to do something along those lines, you had to go into the root chakra and you had to focus on that. And say the same for like with confidence and stuff like that, like the power center of the body, you'd have to go into the solar plexus. So what would be going on right there is you would have to focus individually on each center, and that was where you would get your work done. But say, for instance, that you wanted to do something that integrated, the transceiver inside the head with the pineal that goes with the primal nature and the root, and something with the compassion and the understanding of the heart space. You'd have to focus on all 3 of them at the same time. With the integration, what I noticed is that all I had to do was input the command I'd have to input the intention of what I wanted, and it would take care of it. And I would feel the other energy centers light up from the heart space. And so the energy centers are still there. That's one I really can't stress enough. There's no removal with the chakras. It's an integration. It's a motherboard being installed, I guess you could say, that instead of a blue screen DOS type, one command at a time type thing, it was something that you just said, hey, this is what I want, and you point and click on the computer, and then all of a sudden everything's taken care of. The hard drive and the motherboard and the operating system are all operating together, and they use all the specific components that are already there in a much more integrated, much more cohesive, concise, much faster unit, and much more powerful as well. And so the 0-point center, that's kind of exactly what's going on right there, because despite the fact that I have 2 different centers in my body that I wasn't aware of before with the head and the lower abdomen, the heart space is still where I do all my information. That's where I get all the information from. That's where I put all the information into, and my body takes care of the rest because the commands are already set up and the energy system is operating the way that it's supposed to. And so, like, I can still, remote view with my third eye, with that center right there, but I do it from the heart space. I go into the heart space, and then that flows out everywhere else throughout the body. And there's energy centers in our energetic field on the outside of the body as well that become much more cohesive when you start operating from that one source. So I completely and totally agree with the 0-point. The other parts in the Dantian system, it's more along the lines of a node or a nexus, like if, say, we have an office with a bunch of computers that are all hooked up on the same the same network. What's going on what's going on right there is that you each have an individual computer that can do whatever work that it needs to right there on its own without the others, but you can still connect to the others like that. And so that's kind of what's happening with the Dantian system. So it's definitely a zero-point machine, a zero-point operating system, but it has different computers that are hooked into the network. But there is one command computer, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it kind of seems to me like it ties in a bit to the concept of the meridian system as well as the morphogenetic field system. Sort of all seems to be in play together, I would think.
Yeah.
Here's a good question from Aubrey. I would like Eric to speak on his perspective in regards to the importance of presence in the now moment and how it can be extremely beneficial in terms of unifying and integrating the inner and outer realms.
Very good. Okay, so what we've got going on right here is when we are in the now moment, what's happening is we are not worried about the future and we're not regretting the past. Being in the now moment is one of the most powerful creative things that you can do, because in the now moment, that is the 0 point that we were just talking about. Because time is an illusion. There is no past. There is no future. There is only the now. When we think about the past, what we're doing is we're remembering specific events that have happened that have already happened. They aren't here right now. We are in the now. Like, as I am speaking, what's happening is that I am talking about a specific moment in time, and this is what we're experiencing right now. The future, we don't know what's going to happen. There's potentials for the future to happen, but it's not right now. The now is when we are actually experiencing. Everything else is completely and totally subjective to what you interpret it to be. And so when we step out from worrying about the future or regretting the past or being stuck in the past or, thinking about what's actually going to happen and putting expectations on it and things along those lines, we literally halt the collective consciousness program that has been hijacked. We step outside of it and we become our own creative projection of a consciousness, because we are experiencing reality in that moment as it is happening. And so when we do this, we become completely and totally integrative. And so when you step outside and you look at the world around you like it's the first time you've ever seen it, like look at everything with curiosity, really notice the details, really pay attention to everything, and be in the now moment, what happens is that's when you start to recognize, well, what do I want? And so you start to really manifest what you want right then in that now moment, and it comes to you. You start stepping outside of the collective consciousness programming and going directly towards your manifestation. This is one of the most powerful things that you could do. And, like, if we could get, 1,000 people in one place staying in the now, we could literally shift the whole entire collective consciousness in a massive way. I'm not talking about little things that you might notice in the way that things are operating. I'm talking about, like, literally hacking reality. And, we can have people floating right in front of us. We could have people, ascending right in front of us. This is the type of co-creative ability that we have, and we are very, very powerful at it. And that's why they have put so much effort into hijacking us away from understanding that. And so when we become that 0 point, everything is available, because the universe is completely and totally infinite. There is no lack inside the universe. Everything that ever has happened, will happen, or has happened already. And it's all because there is the potential for everything to happen. And so we step inside of that moment right there to where there is no bottleneck. There is no pinch point to where we are only able to access a certain amount in front of us. We literally step into the infinite. We drop our karma. We step outside of those systems. We open up ourselves to the abundance of the universe in its full creative capacity in the way that each and every single one of us deserve to have. And this isn't really an easy thing to do, and I'm definitely not the best at it. You know, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this physical world that we're existing in right now that keeps you from staying in the now moment. But when you do manage to get inside of this, and one of the ways that I have actually managed to find this was I'll put myself inside of my work. Now, this isn't just like my massage business or anything like that, where I can, you know, really tune into the body and really be present with the person that I'm working with. This is something that I used to do all the time, like in construction. I would become so completely immersed in the work that my day would disappear almost immediately. I would go through a 12-hour day, which you know, I'd be working in Reno outside in like 110-degree heat, and I wouldn't even notice it. And all of a sudden, my day was completely gone, and I was completely and totally refreshed, completely and totally present in mind. And, you know, I recognized that, like, oh, my goodness, I feel amazing. And the Sierra actually talks about this, like some of the gypsies, they would do this type of now moment work by picking up a broom and letting their body go on autopilot and becoming part of the work. And so instead of being in the future or being in the past, they were in that now moment, and that's where they did their work from. And, you know, so you find examples of this, like, everywhere. Anybody can do it. You know, you just have to put yourself into a situation to where your effort is needed and become part of it. You know, really give yourself over to the effort that is happening right there. Don't stay in the future. Don't stay in the past. Stay in the now. Stay with what you are doing. Stay in that moment with what you want. And you can literally feel yourself step outside the time. So 3.5 hours go by and it feels like 10 minutes, you know, and it's a very, very powerful thing. And it's not something like, oh, wow, it just, you know, well, I was paying attention to this, so time flew by. No, you literally stepped outside of time, and you made it like it's actually supposed to be, the way we're actually supposed to experience it, you know, the now moment. And it's a very, very powerful tool. And if we can get multiple people together to do this, you will see changes that will be amazing, absolutely fantastically amazing.
Yeah, the now moment focus is a huge part of my personal daily protocol, I have to say. Incredibly powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's really that feeling of being in flow. We've all had at least a few moments of that feeling of just literally where you feel as though you lose yourself in the now moment. You become one with it. Really super powerful stuff. Here's another great question from Aubrey. What is the difference between the spirit and the soul, or between spirit and the soul?
Okay, see, this is another one of those questions why I don't like labels. Something that somebody would call spirit might mean something different to somebody else. Something that somebody might call soul might be different to somebody else. So I'll just define it the way I know. So what I consider my soul is the vital life force essence that's inside of me, that's powering my body. That's the energy that when this body doesn't work anymore, that's what goes back to source. The spirit is what I consider my astral body, my energetic body, that it's a reflection of the physical body, and it's directly tied into the way the energy flows through my body. So they are completely different in that aspect. But so the soul, that is the eternal aspect of self. That is the eternal consciousness. That's the energy that can't be destroyed. So no matter what happens to the body, the soul always goes on no matter what. And that's what ends up hopping from incarnation to incarnation to incarnation. And that vital life force essence right there, it is something that you can actually tap into. It's you can tap into the soul knowledge, and this is a lot of the information that's imprinted in our DNA, because the DNA is actually, it creates a crystalline resonance that allows that specific soul to go inhabit that body. That's why we have to choose our body before we go and inhabit inside of it, because the body needs to be able to support the resonance of the soul itself. And so that's why through incarnation to incarnation to incarnation, you'll see similar traits, similar features. You know, it's because you're literally forming your body for yourself before you go into it. And the DNA memories, the multidimensional aspect of the DNA, that's where we can tap into the Akashic record. Each and every single one of us has just an absolute legion of information that we can tap into, that we can tune into and know. And that's where I get a lot of my information from. It's because I open myself to the genetic memory, the soul memory, and that's how I figure out a lot of the information that I actually teach people, is because I literally read it. It's almost like going into the Akashic record and pulling out a book and reading it and putting it back and then coming back and talking about it. But it's a much faster medium than like turning pages and using your eyes to read. It's like a information packet download, I guess you could say. And so when you tune into this resonance right here on your soul level, you can look into past lives. You can ask information about what's going on right now. You can ask information about esoteric mysteries that have been like what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? Things along those lines. And you can get answers for it. And when you get answers for it, because then all of a sudden you can open your mouth and just start talking. And that's one of the reasons why people actually resonate so much when I'm speaking, is because they can tell that I'm dialing into a higher source of information than just my brain. And that's why I love Q&As like this, is because sometimes I might not know the answer, and so I have to actually go and download that packet of information and then just start talking about it. So sometimes I'm actually teaching myself by doing these Q&As, because I'll come across information that I would have never thought of to ask. And so it's really fun when that happens, actually. It's like I'll be talking and teaching myself at the same time I'm teaching other people. So it's a pretty cool aspect like that, actually. The spirit, what I use that for is that's how I do my work. That's how I do like the remote work and stuff like that. I actually, it's not just the remote work. I use that for even if somebody's physically in front of me as well. That's the energy that flows through the body. That's the physical reflection that is the energy body. So like say for instance that you're sitting in meditation with your hands in your lap, and you give your body the intention to move your arm, but you leave the physical arm still, you can move your energetic arm around and flap that thing around all you want, and you feel like you're not moving, but you are moving at the same time. And that's the energy body. That's the spirit right there. And so that's what I actually use. Like, so say, for instance, that I place my hand on somebody's head to go reach in and pull out a parasite in the temple. I put my hand on their head, but I reach inside of their head with the spirit hand, and then I actually clench my physical hand, and it's a reflection of my energetic one, and I grab a hold of what I'm grabbing on. I'm unlatching and pulling out of the body, and I end up, teasing it out of the body that way. And it's the same way with, like, the remote work. I'll sit there and I'll talk to somebody for, like, 5 to 10 minutes, and I'll get a good lock on their energetic signature, and then I'll take my energy body over there, I'll take my spirit over there, and so that I'm literally right in front of them physically, and then I do the exact same thing. So, like, when I'm doing work, if you, like, it would actually be kind of funny to look at me do this remotely, because then I don't have anybody in front of me, and I'm sitting there, grabbing stuff and pulling stuff out like that. But, I mean, it's the exact same thing. Time and space is absolutely nothing, and the spirit can travel wherever you put it, and so that's kind of what I'm doing, is I'm bridging that gap right there, and so you are physically in front of me when I'm working on you, even though you're not physically in front of me when I'm working on you, and that's what I use that spirit aspect for. And, I mean, you can do all kinds of different stuff with it. You can go and remote view whatever you want. You can go ask yourself, what does the Grand Canyon look like? And then you can fill your energy body up, take it out of your physical body, and go and open your eyes in the Grand Canyon and look around. You can look inside of your body. You can open your eyes inside of yourself and look around inside and, really turn up the light inside and try to figure out if there's anything inside of you. You can find out where physical dysfunction is. You can find out if your organs are operating correctly or incorrectly. You can do all kinds of different stuff with this aspect of the body, but it's still the aspect of the body. This is, and that's where I find the difference between the two, is because the soul is what comes popping into the body and wakes up the systems inside the body that then allow you to do all this stuff energetically, but it is not the body. It's completely and totally separate from it. It's the consciousness that's piloting that body that can do all that cool stuff around.
Fantastic answer to that question. Here's another good one, and this is a good segue as well. I've loved how these have segued so well. Can we talk about the difference between emotional work and energetic work? I'd also like Eric to address how he feels about mindfulness and how it could possibly function as energy work and emotional work combined.
Well, that's actually a really interesting aspect right there. I've never thought of mindfulness as energetic and emotional work at the same time. I could definitely see how that would be. You could call it that, though. Okay, so energetic work, that is dealing with the energetic construct, the parasites that are inside of us, the healing that we can give people, the boosts of chi that we can, transmit from the body. That's the energy work right there. That's being able to tune into something and recognizing, hey, there's a parasite right here that's latched into this right there, and being able to pull it out. And so when we pull it out, that means that there was something that it was latching into. And most often than not, that is an emotional component. There is a trauma. There's an emotional lack that hasn't been dealt with. There's a selfishness. There's an anger, something along those lines. And so that's what is actually being tuned into by the parasite that you can remove energetically. But the emotional work is going inside and figuring out, well, how come I am at this point right now to where I am allowing this emotional baggage to clutter me up and allow these emotional back doors for the parasite to get in. And so the emotional work would be things along the lines of figuring out where your traumas come from, where your negative emotional aspects come from, using that observer inside to watch the way that you react, and then going and figuring out the root causes of these emotional dysfunctions inside of you, and then closing that back door right there. And so they're very interrelated together, but they're two completely and totally different things. And the energy work is all about building up the stores of energy inside your body and really waking it up to what you can perceive and what you can move around. But the emotional work is turning off the ability for the parasites to trigger you, turning off the ability for the parasites to allow a depression or an attack, an emotional attack that you would then go and perpetuate on other people. And so they're definitely interrelated but completely different. Now, with the mindfulness, that's definitely something that's interesting right there. I hadn't really thought about it before, but I think it's dead on. So when you're mindful, when you have that emotional observer inside of you, not only are you observing the emotional component, you're observing the energetic component as well, and so that you have an understanding of who you are. You're mindful of who you are. You're mindful of what is happening around you and inside of you at the same time. And so not just inside of you physically, like with the parasite construct, but what's inside of you emotionally as well. And so when we step into a state of mindfulness with that emotional observer, we can recognize, like, well, I am kind of acting a little, angry right now. I am kind of acting a little selfish. I am kind of acting a little facetious right now. And you can then, with that, go and figure out on the energetic scale if anything is happening, and so that you can kind of figure that out. But with the mindfulness, you have to really pay attention most of the time and keep yourself with that perfect blueprint of who you are and constantly work towards that and recognize whenever your behavior or the internal dialogue starts shifting and falling outside of that perfect blueprint of who you are, and recognizing it and then correcting it. And so, yeah, that definitely would be Now, you'd still have to do the energy work and you'd still have to do the emotional work, but being mindful of it is the first step, you know, because if you don't know that you have work to do, how are you going to do it, right?
Yeah, really, we could probably do an entire show on just that one question.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we'll have to get a little deeper into that, I think, in the future.
Yeah.
So here's a question. We're going to go a completely different direction here with this question, but I have seen quite a few people asking you about this. So I think that there's going to be a lot of people in the audience that are going to be interested in your response to this question. And this one is from Eve. Eve is asking, she's saying, I'd like to hear Eric talk in more detail about plasterite. Can you please outline whether there is a certain pattern one can place pieces of plasterite around the house to make a strong grid of protection? What is the ideal number of pieces to have? Should they be certain sizes, and if so, how many of each size? What are some items that can be used as molds when making plasterite in different sizes? I've read the instruction document posted here, but it doesn't go into those types of details.
Definitely. I absolutely love plasterite. So plasterite is a form of organite that is millions of times stronger. Now, a regular pyramid, like a 5 or 6 inch tall pyramid that you see, that you see being sold around the internet is, if it's well made, it's multiple layers of metal and organic material layered together. And it can, on the Bovis scale, which is how we actually measure the power of these devices, it can, you know, if you have, especially somebody like Stephen Geddes, who has been making organite for a long, long time. This guy, he integrates tensor rings, he integrates little secret coils, he integrates all kinds of amazing stuff into his pieces. And his are some of the strongest I've ever come across, and they average easily 30 million Bovis. Somebody just fresh off the shelf who's never made this stuff before, who just throws a bunch of crystals and metal into the mix, they're only going to be looking at maybe 50, 60,000 Bovis. And that is definitely strong enough to work on the EMF radiation around you and transmute negative vibrational energy into positive. But the plasterite is in a world of its own. The first piece that I ever made, we measured that one out to about 50 billion. And, I mean, this thing, it turned the entire sky just this gorgeously deep blue color. And every single chemtrail that was around for, I believe, at least 50, 60 miles of a radius around me. So, I mean, it was like a 100-mile bubble that could not be there are no chemtrails were able to even be laid down inside of it. I mean, it was just phenomenal. And so what is going on with the plasterite is that it's I almost want to say intelligent construct. It's almost like hacking reality. It's allowing vital life force essence to pump its way through the grid lines of the planet directly into the surrounding area around you, and its field is absolutely massive. And when I say intelligent, I say that because as you are allowing this stuff to harden, you can literally program it. And so I've programmed my plasterite with all kinds of different things. Like I have blue sky broadcasters that are constantly working on the sky, transmuting chemtrails, so that I don't have to constantly look up at the sky and then transmute them myself with my consciousness. I've always got something that's constantly doing it for me, so I can set it and forget it, I guess you could say. I've programmed them with neutralizing predatory intent. I carry plasterite around in my vehicle with me all the time, and I haven't ran into a police officer since then. And I've been doing some pretty stupid stuff occasionally, like driving way too fast, right past these cops that, like, they're distracted right at the perfect moment. They're looking down at their monitor. They're looking in a different direction, and they don't even see me. I don't exist inside of their reality because I completely neutralize the predatory intent, and that's what they operate on. They're always looking for somebody to hunt down. And you can do stuff along the lines of heart space activations. So everybody who is within the field is going to be having their heart space start to open up and not be blocked out, start experiencing compassion, understanding, and, benevolence, that the way human nature is supposed to actually be instead of what it is right now. You can program it for anything, and pretty much what it is plaster of Paris and quartz silicate or sand. And what happens is the plaster of Paris is gypsum, and the sand, the quartz silicate, so it's a mixture between gypsum and sand, and when it hardens, it becomes selenite. And so you end up with this massive piece of programmable selenite that's intelligent, and it's constantly working for what you program it to. And so the way you make it is it's about 2/3 plaster of Paris to 1/3 sand. And then the water that I use is water that I'd set out for about 24 hours in the sunlight with all kinds of crystals inside of it to charge the water itself. And everything that you put into the water, it ends up locking its resonance inside of the plasterite as it's made. So some of the most powerful stones that I have are moldavite and shungite, and those are some of my favorites to put in there. I put all kinds of stuff in there. I've got garnets. I've got Larimar. Larimar is a really good one. It comes from under the ocean, actually, and it's this just beautiful sky blue, marbleized-looking pattern, and it just feels so earthy and motherly and waterish. I love Larimar. I highly recommend people check that out. But I use all my techites, my moldavite, my Sintamani, Libyan gold techite, things along those lines. Anything that came from outer space, it's highly tachyonized, and it's lots of good energy that goes in there. And so I'll charge up the water for about an hour, or for about 24 hours, and then I'll make it the next day. Now, for molds, one of my favorite molds is actually a traffic cone. And I take the traffic cone and then I duct tape the end of it so that it's watertight. And then I will pour that in there and let that harden for about a day and then turn that over and kind of tap that out on a blanket. I've used buckets. One of my favorite ones to do, like when I'm gifting, like when I'm throwing these into the water and stuff like that, because water makes it a lot more powerful. It charges the water, and then the water, wherever that's at, that becomes a broadcaster of the Orgone energy as well. And so I'll put them into like 2-liter Coke bottles and stuff like that. Now, I don't drink soda, but I do buy Coca-Cola because it's an amazing industrial cleaner. You can clean your toilet amazing with Coca-Cola. You can clean off rust and stuff like that off of metal. Anything that CLR will do, calcium lime rust stuff, you can do that with Coca-Cola. And it's a lot cheaper than any of the industrial cleaners as well. And so I have those bottles that I will fill up with plasterite and let those harden. And I'll either carry those around in my car or I'll go and gift those around to the environment around me. What else have I used? Buckets, bottles, cones. And I've got 2 different types of cones. I've got the big traffic cone, and then I've got the smaller one for you take your kids to soccer practice or something like that, and they use those cones right there. It's about that size. And you can do all kinds of different stuff with them. I've used baking dishes too, like plates and stuff like that, and those are what I use for charging plates. And so it ends up with a tile that you can carve designs into. You can paint them. You can do all kinds of different stuff to it. But those are the molds that I use for those. But then one of the most powerful things that I found to do is take an extension cord and wrap it clockwise from the top to the bottom all the way around one of these cones, and the spiral of the cone by itself it gives an amazing spin to the Orgone energy. But then you take an extension cord and you wrap it around these things, and then you plug it into something that's on 24/7. Like I've got mine in between my refrigerator and my wall, and then the refrigerator's plugged into the extension cord, and the extension cord is plugged into the actual grid itself. And what that does is that literally cleans out the electricity everywhere throughout its whole entire influence. And so when we look at electricity, there's actually 2 different types of electricity that's being fed into our home. And there's only about 60% of the electricity that we're being able to even use to begin with and then about 40% of it is like EMF feedback. And so we can't use that. It doesn't power devices, but it still goes through the meter. And so we get charged for it, and it comes off as a nasty EMF frequency. And so what this does is it completely cancels it out within its zone of influence. And like a broadcaster, one of these cones that's about maybe 3.5 feet tall with an extension cord around it, its field is massive. I mean, we're talking about 15, 20 miles right here. So you'll actually notice your power bill will go down, and you won't have those nasty EMF buzzes from the electronic devices in your house. And it cleans out pretty much your whole entire neighborhood. I mean, your whole entire town. I mean, these are an amazing tool of light to use right there. So that's one of my favorite things to do with them. I always like to hunt down cell towers and stuff like that, like the Gwen towers specifically. The regular cell towers, they have just like a satellite dish-looking type thing on them, and those are actual cell towers. The Gwen towers are the ones with those flat discs that are thick and maybe about like a foot across and then like 5 feet tall. Those right there are actually propagating the scalar field that these implants can move around through. And so if you go and find one of those towers and you bury a bottle of plasterite next to like because they all have a power transformer that's fenced off and locked up, if you can find you can take like a metal detector out there or something like that, and you can find the power supply that goes underground that's buried, and then you can dig a hole right next to it and place one of those in there, you completely and totally neutralize that tower. And so that tower not only becomes neutralized, it actually starts broadcasting positive orgone radiation. And so that's an amazing thing that you can do, and you'll notice that you'll have all kinds of military flyovers, you'll have all kinds of black helicopters, stuff like that, trying to figure out where this is. And orgonite they can actually tune into. They can figure out where it's at, like metal and resin. They can figure out where it's at if it's strong enough. But this plasterite, they're completely oblivious to it unless you put metal powder inside the plasterite. And that makes, it's a different frequency that it pumps out, and it's very, very strong, very, very gritty. But you will have literally a black helicopter floating above your backyard about 100 feet off of the ground, which is how I realized this was a bad idea to do. So, yeah, they can tune right into those. But, I mean, it's an amazing tool of light. It completely and totally throws a massive, massive wrench inside the Cabal's works. You know, all their actual physical technology that they use, it completely neutralizes all kinds of it. It's I highly recommend anybody make it. You know, plaster of Paris, you can go to Home Depot and pick up a bag of that for $18, and then you can go to the concrete section and pick up a big bag of play sand for like $3, you know, and there you go. You've got the basics right there. Other additives that I like to put in there, those are just the basics, and then the crystal water and whatnot. But all you need is the plaster of Paris and the sand, and you can make something that is effective. If you want it really strong, put the crystal water into it. The other things that I like to put in there, wash your sand too. You know, rinse the sand out because that's got like some chemical stuff in it that it throws off the vibration a little bit. So, you know, throw it into a bucket and kind of swirl it around, and then pour out the dirt, and you know, fill up the bucket again, swirl it around, kind of like your gold panning. You know, get the stuff that floats up out of there. But other stuff that I put inside of it, I like to get beach sand, any type of sand with a crystalline structure on it already, because salt is crystalline. And so anything from the ocean is absolutely amazing. You can put seaweed in there. You can put shells in there. Shells, specifically the spiral shells, things with a phi or a golden ratio build to them, they really knock up the vibration of these pieces by, I mean, like the magnitudes of like 10. They make them so much stronger. It's absolutely amazing. Anything from the ocean that you throw in there is going to be good to go. Patterns and stuff like that. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So one of the other things that you can make out of these is something called a Bernoulli ring. And the way that you make that is if you had a plastic box and you tilted it up on its side so it had one point down, and then you filled up that bottom as much as you could, you'll end up with a pyramid made out of the plasterite. And then you can take anywhere from 4 is the basic minimum that you need. I've made Bernoulli rings with about 12 of these things. And pretty much what that is you place the flat side down so that the straight side comes up, and then you put them right next to each other, about maybe 4 or 5 inches apart, and you line them up in a geometric pattern with this Bernoulli ring, and you can feel it as you place the last one in there. Because, I mean, these all have a very, very strong energetic field to begin with. And, like, when they activate, if you're energetically sensitive, it feels like you get kicked in the chest. They're that strong. And when you put that last piece in place with that geometric pattern with the Bernoulli ring, I mean, good night. You almost have to run away from it because it's just so powerfully, incredibly strong. And, like, you have to really kind of get used to the vibration of these things because they'll keep you awake at night. You'll have, like, awful insomnia trying to go to sleep if you keep these within, like, 20 feet of your bed until you start getting used to it. But the Bernoulli ring, when you start stretching these out and you start adding more, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different pieces inside of this ring right here, all geometrically spaced apart and facing each other so that there's like a solid line on the inside, they become just so much stronger than they were before. And it's a perfect representation of humanity, like each and every single one of us is an energetic powerhouse on our own, but when we align ourselves into a grid with, other people operating towards the same goal, we become so much stronger, and it's not even a magnitude of 2 plus 2 equals 4, or that's actually a bad one because 2 times 2 is 4 as well. But, like 10 plus 10 is 20. It's not that. It's 10 times 10. It's the magnitude of 100 instead of just 20 by adding it together. And it's incredibly powerful stuff. I highly recommend anybody make it. It's super cheap. It's super easy to make. It's non-toxic. And you throw it outside, and if it starts breaking apart in the rain or anything like that, just make another piece, That's one of the reasons why I do like putting them inside of a plastic coating, such as a 2-liter soda bottle or something like that, because then you can cap it off, and it becomes watertight, and you can throw it wherever you want, and it'll stay good forever, pretty much. So plasterite's real good stuff. Highly recommend everybody make it.
Fantastic. Really good. And easy, so something fun to do with the kiddos, get them involved, that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. You can do, like, handprints and stuff like that, all kinds of different designs in it. Kids love to make it.
So it looks like we have a caller. Let's go ahead and finish up with a question from the audience. Area code 862.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi.
What's your name? Hi.
Hi, my name is Hadassah. I was just listening, as you were talking. I didn't come in on the beginning of the show. But what I wanted to find out was, could a virus, the type of virus that you're talking about, could it be passed down from one generation to the other, or does everyone have to acquire a virus on their own?
Oh, definitely it can be passed down. This is where you end up with, so when we say something along the lines of like a lineage or a familial entity that is hooked into a family, what happens is you'll end up with, say, the father has a specific weakness or a vice or something along those lines. This is where we get that term, sins of the father become the sins of the son. And it's because that resonance of what happens, the child ends up picking it up. They end up seeing it. They end up trying to emulate it. And then they end up owning it and taking it over. And so then the entity attachment, the parasitic construct can actually keep that resonance going. And so it perpetuates that resonance from generation to generation to generation until somebody in that line actually recognizes that it's happening and puts their foot down and stops it and starts, breaking the cycle and then continuing on without it.
Okay, because I feel that I can't really elaborate on my paternal side, but I know on my maternal side, I see a similarities with like my grandmother's generation and my mother's generation, and now, I'm the third, and then my kids, my children, rather. And at this point, I'm the one that wants to put my foot down, but I'm really not sure where to begin. But I do see some things that I could honestly say it's like it's a repetitive cycle. And, I mean, I know it's not just myself. I'm pretty sure my cousins are dealing with the same thing. They just don't want to readily acknowledge or accept it. Just like my siblings don't want to acknowledge or accept it. But I want to be the person who stop it from perpetuating further. You know, to me, it's like a vice that you have to correct yourself somewhere along the line, but you really got to know what is the source of the problem before you can solve it.
Well, definitely. Well, you know, that's the key right there. You have to know where the source of the problem is so that you can solve it. Now, what I would do is if I were trying to break a cycle that was passed down through my family is I would go into the reasons why I continue doing that specific behavior. I would figure out what inside of me feels lacking so that I have to continue with this process. And even though I know I don't want to, I'm still continuing to perpetuate it. And once I nailed that down and I started seeing how that worked, I would start reversing those symptoms. I would start saying, okay, so instead of when I'm doing this, what I'm going to do when I'm doing this specific vice, instead of that, what I am going to do is I am going to do something that makes me feel good. I am going to, do a hobby, something along those lines. You know, try to distract yourself from it. But one of the most important things that you can do to break the cycle is to let your children know. Let your children know, listen, this is what's been going on. This is what I've been noticing, and this is what I am trying to stop right here. This is what I am trying to figure out so that I don't pass this down to you so you guys don't have to deal with it, and hold yourself accountable to your kids. You know, that's one of the easiest ways that you can start kicking stuff out like that is letting them know, because if you're dealing with this in the darkness and they have no clue that it's even happening, they might be picking up that resonance, you know, without you even realizing it. And so it's definitely something that's really important, because with awareness, then we can actually have understanding. And so when you're a kid and your mother or your father tells you, like, hey, this is what's going on right now and this is something that you need to look out for, all of a sudden they, instead of it, you know, snuck up on inside of you unannounced and you didn't really understand how it happened, they actually have a front row view to what is going on internally, and they can make that decision for themselves.
And I agree with that, because I have been having those discussions, although they pretty much don't want to hear it, but they hear me speak of it constantly. You know, like in the sense of I just want them to be aware, because I think the residue from myself, I was grieving my mother. I mean, I still am. And they saw the betrayal, and the betrayal really was due to greed and pride and competition. But they saw how hurt I was, and I think I wounded my children because they actually saw me wounded. And, you know, with doing my own inner work and just, you know, coming back from that place of hurt, I'm hoping that once they see me do it, that they would either do everything to avoid it happening again, or they'll know how to respond if they ever find themselves in that situation. I don't want to say when, because I don't want them to go through what I went through.
Yeah.
But
one of the easiest ways to do that is lead by example. That's you're definitely barking up the right tree there.
I see a common thread, and I could go back like in, you know, to, you know, my earliest memories, and I could recall where, you know, here this thing comes again. And it's always at the point when someone passes and go on, and then, you know, the gloves come out, and the deceptions come out, and all of that. But
yeah,
I'm at the place now, I'm just trying to figure out, like, you know, if it's a virus that can be removed. You know, I definitely don't want my children to have it.
Well, we're starting to run out of time right now, but I highly recommend that you go to my website at unleashingnaturalhumanity.com and start reading up on these systems and actually see what's going on. You'll find links to videos that will actually allow you to start doing energy work to clear the system out of yourself, and so on and so forth. It's unleashingnaturalhumanity.com.
Okay.
Thank you, Dasha, so much for your call. Thank you.
I appreciate taking my call. It's been a very interesting show. And, I hope to follow the show as well, because these are the things that I'm trying to work on right now. And I do like to, use different things like crystals and meditation and all that, because there was a gamut of things that came after me. And I'm going through the healing process as we speak.
Yeah, and you're not alone in that. You really aren't. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to your story, and I've had this conversation recently with my own sister and my own mother, and it's a common story that we tend to have these ancestral and genetic traumas, and you really can put your foot down and say, enough already. It's time to heal and to stop allowing ourselves to revolve around inside of these hurtful and painful programs, right?
You know what? And I agree, but everyone is not in that same place, because the people that hurt me, I don't think they could ever find it within themselves to admit that they hurt myself and my children, and even just apologize and mean it. Because arrogance is in the way, pride is in the way.
And you don't have to have them acknowledge that and apologize and take ownership to heal it within yourself. You can do it without their participation, which is the beautiful thing. It's beautiful that you can decide to take ownership of your own healing, and then to clear the pathway also for your children. Because when we require someone else to do something to make sure that we're okay, that right there is giving our power away. It's putting your power right into the hands of the people that you feel injured by, when really what it boils down to is that they also are injured. And then whoever injured them was also injured. And so it really does break that, it's a breaking of the cycle. And the parasites really take advantage. They take advantage of where we have trauma.
How do you handle someone that they just hurt? They just constantly hurt people, and when they do it, they run and they hide, or they don't acknowledge it. But every time you have to deal with it, they hurt you.
Well, personally, I choose to not allow people like that in my life. I don't, even if someone is my family, I have boundaries about behavior that I allow and behavior that I don't allow. And so I don't have relationships with people who can't take responsibility for their behavior, quite simply. And it can be really painful to say, actually, no. I love you unconditionally from a distance, because it's not safe to have you in my life. But when you're ready to heal and you're ready to take responsibility, give me a call. And it's okay to do that. It's not selfish. Yeah, it's not selfish to do that.
Whenever I have to deal with them, I literally, just even thinking about coming in contact with them, and these are my siblings, I literally get a feeling in my stomach like I just want to just come out my body, like the pit of my stomach. And I'm very empathic.
That's a communication. I mean, that's your body talking to you.
Excuse me?
Yeah, that's your body talking to you, because it's intelligent, and you have a level of intuitive communication coming from your body that's saying, "Hey, watch out." That's your alert system saying this is something to pay attention to. Just like if we cut if you cut your arm, the pain is saying, "Hey, look at that. That needs attention." The pain itself is not the important part. It's just the indication that there's something to pay attention to. So that feeling in your body is much like that. It's saying something here is not, this isn't working. this is not okay, this is not safe for me. And so it's bringing your attention to that.
Okay.
Yeah, really good question. And you really do check out Eric's website and start reading some of the content there, because the more you know, the more you're the more you know, the more equipped you are.
Yeah. I have to do what I have to do, because my children are just like me. I could see different attributes of myself and characteristics that I know that they're the same way, and they're like sponges. And I don't want them in that, that environment. And I still also know if I have to go around them, when I come home, it travels unless I let it go, and they'll pick it up. And I actually had to see how it affected my private life and my family life. I had to honestly see that, wait a minute, this is coming with me. It's coming off of me, and they're soaking it in just like I soaked it in.
Yeah, you're in a really unique and amazing position to break that cycle. It's actually really exciting and beautiful. It's a beautiful opportunity, really.
It really is.
Thank you so much for calling in, Adasha. We're off air now, but we have this show every Wednesday at the same time, so come back and join us. Okay,
what time did you come on? Because I didn't catch the beginning.
It's 9:30 Pacific, yeah.
Okay. And it's unleashingnaturalhumanity.com.
Yes,
and also on Facebook under that name as well.
Okay, I kind of like pull back from Facebook because
just go straight for the website.
Yeah, because of my brothers were trolling me, and I mean they literally started, anyone that they knew that I happened to deal with outside of home, they were always trying to troll me through them as well, and it was so crazy.
Anytime that someone is incapable of doing their own healing, when they can't stand to take responsibility for their own healing, it is not uncommon to lash out and attack those, especially those who love you sort of unconditionally. That's not an uncommon response, and it doesn't excuse it, certainly, but there's a lot of pain behind the behavior that they're expressing, and it sounds like somebody needs to put their foot down and put a stop to it. Certainly.
Well, especially
and you're in a
when
perfect
you start
position.
Especially when you start going through your own healing work, and they can't find a place inside themselves to start doing that themselves. That's when you find a lot of that behavior right there, because it's like, well, you're not in this pit with me anymore, so I'm going to try to drag you back down here. That kind of a thing.
That's true. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we thank you so much for calling, Adasha. I'm going to go ahead and go off air now, but call us back. We want to hear from you again.
Sure will. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You're very welcome. Have a good one, Natasha.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye. See you next time, Beth.
Okay. Bye, Eric.